let's take a minute and talk about space, because I think for those of us who are gardening in an urban setting, we're often limited in our space. And so while we try to maximize the space, and in many ways we also attempt to do things like this vertical gardening and experiment around with vertical gardening, we also need to consider additional ways to maximize our space. And so while we do some trellising with plants like our grapes to improve that vertical structure, and you can see that happening all along our house, and even providing this kiwi, for example, with a vertical element here for it to climb up, and hopefully in its 4th year now providing us with some fruit, that isn't enough for us to really make the use of all of the space we have. And so we have the idea of adding another element in the form of hanging baskets. Guten Yardening, everybody. Initially we had these hanging baskets that are pretty heavy, and we want to garden in them but nowhere to put them. And then we got to thinking and came up with what I would say is a cost-effective, heavy-duty solution. All right, so we have these hanging baskets. They're pretty big. This is a 17-inch basket. We also have a 20-inch basket as well. And we want to do something with it that's not just flowers. We want to grow some potatoes or something else in here kind of nice. And the problem is that this is really heavy. And so your traditional shepherd's hook, and we've got this one simply holding one of these little wind spinners, which is really cool. But a simple shepherd's hook like this has a problem, because if you put any kind of weight on it at all, and if I tried to put the basket on here, you would see it just absolutely collapse over. And part of the reason for that collapse is because, well, we only have one point of contact here and then one other little piece down into the ground. So a hook like this, which is probably going to cost, this is a little less expensive, maybe $14 or $15, or even a hook like this, which is a little bit more expensive. I mean, these are made to hold really lightweight things like bird feeders. So most of them you'll see are just rated for, I don't know, 10, 12 pounds tops. You can see what I'm talking about, even with the variety of hooks that they have. These are supposed to be the heavy duty ones, and they're perfect for a lot of what you're trying to do. But again, as soon as you start moving and putting something a little bit heavy on here, you're gonna find that they're bending right over. Now, before I show you our final solution, I'm going to show you a couple of other pieces that we attempted here that work in varying degrees, but that weren't what we really wanted for a final solution. One of them is in between two of our raised beds. And we've got this nice trellising here, so we've got some space off the ground, and we ran a 2x4 and tried to stabilize that 2x4 and then placed the hook right off of it. And you can see it's fairly stable, although it's not really what we want in terms of appearance. Now, it'll work, and it's something we're going to keep for now, but I think there are better solutions. Go ahead and give us a like if you haven't already, and enjoy more of our content by subscribing and ringing the bell so that you can get all the notifications you need anytime we release a new video. Now, a second solution, which I actually like a lot, but which is probably not going to be accessible to everyone, we have this sour cherry tree. It used to be a peach tree until that part died off, and we have this sour cherry tree that is pretty stable here as well. I mean, these branches are big enough now, a couple inches in diameter, that they can hold these baskets. And so we placed a couple of hanging baskets on this tree. Now, whether or not we leave them there full term, that's still to be decided, but I think this is a pretty cool alternative as a place, because we're not trying to hang these up against our house. I mean, that's one of the things that we decided against doing, was to drill into our house or grow that way. So I spent more time than I'd like to admit trying to find a workable solution that was going to enable us to hang this in a way that wasn't going to cause a problem. And we just came up with, I think, the perfect solution. I found a bunch of these forged garden hooks, and actually this is a 15-inch hook. I think a shorter hook might even be better for this, but these were $4.99, so $5 for this hook. So you can see here there are a ton of different options at different price points, some of them less sturdy than others, so some we wouldn't want to use, and some more sturdy that we can come in here and use just fine. And really, it's up to you what you want it to look like in terms of color, in terms of overall structure. And then we have this U-post. So I'm sure you've seen these U-posts before. They're only about, well, this is a 6-footer. It's $6 for this U-post. And you can see in here, we actually have some holes already in here. Now, the spacing is not perfect. where one hole is, there isn't a hole up above, and you can see that right there, but the hole size is actually spot on. And so I can easily come up here to the second hole and drill through. So now, using some nuts and bolts that I already had here just from previous things that I've taken apart and didn't need anymore, I've been able to create a really nice sturdy structure. Really much sturdier than any of the shepherd's hooks. And what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to go down to the next hole right here, and I'm going to balance this out with a hook going the other way. And these are still going to be tall enough and high enough that once I get this pounded in the ground, it'll be nice and stable. So I'm going to do that next. I'm going to add that second hook, and then I'm going to put it in the ground. Well, how about this for our solution for our hanging basket problem, where we couldn't get the stability we needed from the traditional shepherd's hooks, and they were, again, pretty pricey. Now we're looking at about an $11 fix that I would say, once it's in the ground, this is going to look great. And once everything starts growing in our baskets, it'll look even better. And this U-post is very stable, very sturdy. This is going to be buried a good foot plus into the ground, and so I'm not worried about any problems there. I think if you wanted to, you could go with an even shorter hook and you'd be just fine. So I'm going to put this in the ground and put a couple baskets on it and show you what it looks like. Well, there you go. It is in the ground, and I think this is fantastic. We could definitely get away, even with these bigger baskets, with some shorter hooks if we wanted to, but it is nice and stable. I'm not moving this thing around, and it's only a good foot or so in the ground. Now, in terms of distance off the ground, for the basket on the left, we're probably talking about 2.5 feet or so. And for the one on the right, we're talking about 2 feet. So we've got that vertical gardening piece happening. You can see we're definitely gardening underneath this and all around it as well. So we're trying to expand our space. And this is just one of the methods that we came up with that I think is going to make a big difference, because I think we could go with a 7-footer and that would bring things up even more so. There are other options out there, but this is our solution. We'd love to know what you think in the comments. If you have come up against a barrier like this and you have your own creative solution, we'd love to hear about what that is as well. In the meantime, we hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.